All right, so what is up, everybody? Shell Scout 0013 here, reporting in for just another discussion about Legion, and we're gonna talk about a few different discussions today and different topics to just give you guys some ideas about the lists and turn zeros and creating an objective list versus maybe a reactionary list, and then anything in between. And if you haven't already, go ahead and head to the Discord now and just feel free to join up. You can get started into like CIS lists, ask questions about CIS, Shadow Collective. We have a few people playing tournaments right now, even Anthony, who we're going to have talk in just a little bit. And then anything about like, Star Wars Armada, Shatterpoint, any stuff, anything like that. If you're looking for games, feel free to definitely post up there. And then you can also head over to the Patreon where you can become a member and help support this channel and help to grow. And hopefully, we'll come out with some battle reports soon and some more videos for you guys and some giveaways. So, yeah, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. So, today with us, we have Canadian Bear or Graham.
Hey guys, just excuse my voice, but I'm not. Yeah, it's not COVID. That's all I care about.
Yeah, that's important.
Yep.
All right. And then we have Chris.
Hello, hello. How's it going?
Good. And then we also have Anthony or the Chosen One.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Reeling from a long, long day yesterday. Sidebar: I woke up at 4 in the morning and didn't get back till like 1, and stayed up till 4 again. So we're running on a little bit of sleep here, but we're good.
Hopefully, it's not too delusional or too delirious whenever you're trying to think about different things. Um,
That's right.
but yeah, so today we're just going to kind of talk about lists and have kind of a competitive discussion about different topics. So maybe the first one that's just kind of off the top of the head right now is: should you build a 800-point reactionary red list, or should you really kind of focus on objective play and being blue player, and possibly why? And whoever wants to join or chime in first, feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, I think since it's fresh on my mind, I genuinely like being at 800, just because I'm kind of scared at tying sometimes. You don't think it ends in a tie most times, but if you have two really good players and things aren't dying, then it's gonna end up coming down to that. And it almost came down to that yesterday on the final game. I think had I killed an IRG, we would have been tied on points, and I was still red player, so I would have broke that tie. Um, but yeah, I kind of like either going, you know, slightly synergistic, or just kind of going with the list that's reactionary. And there's definitely pros and cons to both types of lists. I feel like if you lean into more synergistic lists, you're kind of at the mercy of what your units can and can't do, and you don't have that much flexibility. Kind of like, for example, if you take Krennic, sometimes you can take some Dark Troopers, you can take Death Troopers, um, but there definitely are corner cases where that's not going to be super useful. Um, they both do have synergistic, capabilities, but I think for Death Troopers, for example, they do surge to block and they do really good damage output, but they're not impervious. So if something has pierce, then it doesn't really matter. Um, Whereas if you have a reactionary list, you're kind of able to do a lot of things. You're not going to excel per se at every single objective, but you're definitely not going to flat out get smacked around the board. I'll say that. But that's just kind of my play style. I kind of like to let the game play out and progress before I make a final decision on how I'm going to play the game. I know some other people kind of like to go in with the game plan right off turn 0 or turn 1 and kind of just continue with that. But I'm kind of more of a on the fly type of player. It's good and bad sometimes, but that's just kind of my play style. I don't know how y'all guys like to set up, or if y'all go in with a plan, or you're kind of just going to see what's hitting and what's not hitting.
I think at least when you're blue player, you have structure and you know exactly what you can and cannot do for any situation. And do you guys feel the same?
Sure. I mean, I think right now I I think that we're starting to experience the long-term effects of having the red player win tiebreakers, as opposed to the blue player. You used to pay a bid, right, and sacrifice points that you're not bringing to your army, and the advantage that you would gain is that you would win if your opponent didn't outscore you, right? By flipping it, I think that they definitely were trying to get people to stop bidding so heavy. I think they probably were looking at it from a design standpoint and saying, man, like there's people out there bidding 20, 30 points. Like, is this like, at what point does it become like, hey, I'll drop a whole activation just so that I can ensure that I'm blue player because this, that, and the other. Especially when you're like talking about like, oh, I bid, if someone bids 15 and then another person bids 20, you feel like, wow, I spent 15 points, right, to try to have a bid, and then somebody beat me, and that feels bad. So I think that there were a lot of things going on with why they maybe changed it to make it so that red player wins on ties and stuff. But I think the consequence that we're finding is that now there's very little incentive to be the blue player, in the sense of like the red player gets to ban second, which means that they always get to ban the things that they absolutely can't play. The red player gets to pick the table edge, which means that they can try to force bad deployments on your part or something like that. And now, if the red player is playing an objective where they can just even score you, like sabotage the VAPs or something like that, you really, as the blue player, are just coming to the table with potentially having, you know, just you're losing. Like you're setting your pieces down and you're losing. Um, and I think that maybe that's kind of counterproductive. So from a design standpoint, I hope that maybe they revisit this and they look at this in the future and say, hey, we've done this for a long time now. We're starting to see the number of tied games increase, like just genuine tied games increase, and the reason for these tied games is because 800 is so easy to just pop in one little thing, a little 2-point upgrade or whatever, just to round out your army, get to your 800, and then now we're having, instead of it, oh, I have a 9-point bid, you've got a 10-point bid, this guy has a 12-point bid, instead of having a huge variance of like you never really show up to the table knowing who is going to have the most of a bid. Like there are always going to be 800-point players, but those players are the penalty that they're paying is that they lose, right? Previously they would lose the tiebreaker, so you're bringing the fullest amount of points possible, but you're being punished for it, which I think is the correct and more preferable game state to have. To say that if somebody brought every ounce of firepower to the table, then they should have some sort of like negative, because right now it's feeling like 800 is just so strong. And I even find myself now, I mean, I have lists where I bid and I go heavy objectives because it's fun, but I mean, I'll be the first person to admit that objectively speaking, you should probably try to find ways to get to 800, especially considering that you still have that 50-50 chance to be a blue player or a red player when you do tie and stuff.
Now, there are, I feel like, battle forces, especially like the Ewoks and Tempest Force, that have to have a bid somehow because those battle
Right.
forces just need certain objectives and do not perform well at like hostage, like Tempest Force. Their Tempest Force is probably not going to do really well at hostage at all because you also don't even have a force user. You just have to maneuver correctly, like try to block the hostages with ATST. And if you're a red player with Tempest or maybe even the Imperial Remnant or something like that, you're probably a little screwed. So sometimes I feel like you have to be blue player, and they should make that a little bit more appealing to people. But that's just kind of my opinion about that.
Yeah, and I think that we probably all have the same opinion, which is that a tied game doesn't feel very good. Like, I don't particularly feel like I ever want a tie. I really, really rather have one more victory point in
Mhm.
however I got to that point, whether it's through a bounty, a secret mission, or playing the objective better. That's what I would love to walk away with every single game, having my opponent either win. I think ties are good for like you're playing recover the supplies, and you got a cheeky snipe on their box holder at the end of the game, and then woo, you tied the game with that, and like that can be an exciting way to have a tie still feel like it's earned, right? Because you took a 3-2 objective and you turned it to 2-2, and then it became really exciting all of a sudden. But sabotage the Vaps at 2-2, like, and then you're just like, like literally turn 0, you're basically looking at them going like, I'm not coming at you, and they're going to be like, well, I don't want to spend the actions to move and shoot because you're just going to be dodging and standby, or you're going to aim shoot when I do finally hit your arc. You're going to come in, and like I'm just going to get lit up, and then the first person to drop an activation is the loser, right? So
Yeah.
so it's rough. It's
Yeah, I
rough.
agree.
It's rough. I mean, and there's and I could even point to a couple other hostage exchange if you're two non-force user lists. That happens so many times. It's like, oh, but you say, well, I brought bounty, and then it's like they take your one bounty target, they hide it behind a rock, and say, you're not scoring bounty. It's not happening. I'm willing to be down one activation the whole game. You're not going to score bounty. We're going to go to a tie. Like there's ways to play, and I think that right now we have this 800 point situation, which is causing people to want to tie games. And the other thing that was told to me by a friend, he said, I'm not as good as a lot of players out there. So he's like, I play 800 because my 50-50 on a tie, like if it was in a tournament or something, is probably better chances than if I tried to outplay my opponent. And I was like, that's mind blowing. He's very right because he's newer to the game. So he's like, he said, I'll take a 50-50 before I try to make a play. And I'm like, that's interesting, right? Because now you have a situation where people can build lists and try to win on luck, like just real luck, literal luck, not dice luck, not just like genuine like 50-50. Because you know how tournaments go, right? Like if there's a at that point, you have a tie on your record, and you're trying to, and if you're in the top cut, well, they just have to flip a coin to see who advances on top cut, right? Because it's single elimination. You can't have a tie in single and these are niche cases, but they're definitely something that competitive players I think are thinking about right now. Like I watched at Crucible, there was like 3 tied games in Crucible total, and one of them actually did result in in them Jordan having to flip a coin and say, all right, this is the person who advances.
I mean, when you look at the objectives too, it's either, besides key positions and recover, they're all either even number of potential neutral victory points, or they're all equal already contained victory points. So like bombing run, everyone has 3 to start with. Everyone has the potential for 3 with payload. Everyone has, well, payload, but everyone
Who's
has
playing that? I don't know.
There was a brief moment that I thought, you know what, maybe I'll take payload because it would have forced somebody to come to my back line. But anyways, continue, Graham.
Well, I mean, I can tell you, Flutters love payload, and
Yeah, they do.
that won me the game, was a Flutter and refusing to die. But yeah, and if there is gonna be, because at the moment right now, if you tie both at 800 points before the game starts, there is no attacker defender anymore.
Bingo.
So like, I think it was Kyle brought up the idea.
The Trooper. Yeah.
From the
This past week.
Yeah, the Scoundrels podcast, where it's like, if you're gonna do it before the game starts.
Yep.
Now you have assigned roles.
Roll the if you I think I think that tournament organizers could adopt that very, very easily. Say, hey guys, if you show up at the table and you guys have the same bid, go ahead and roll your block, die, just red die, just like you normally do, and decide at that point who is going to be the winner of a tie, because at least the player who's like, well, it's turn 0, I'm the losing player on a tie. Now I know that I need to make a play happen, and instead of what happens is you get these just mind-numbingly awful game states where nobody is moving and shooting because it's just better to just aim dodge, or to clone share your aims in case something is shootable later, and have dodges for the fact that they're going to move and shoot into you potentially, and then so you just get to these situations where you look at the other side of the table, you're like, well, you've got 6 dodges,
Mhm.
in exemplar, and keywords and things. It's like, I don't want to shoot you now, and when you go to shoot me back, you're going to fire support and you've got 6 aims, like, so I'm not going to enter your range 3 band, and then so now you have 2 lists that are just like, tech, what's it, like the Southwest, where the music's playing and the tumbleweeds rolling, but
Ah,
like it
yeah.
never hits noon. Like it just never hits noon. Like the bell doesn't
Yeah.
ring. Nobody draws. Nobody does anything.
Mhm.
It's super frustrating, which honestly is why, as a very aggressive player, I tend to just go ahead and bid points, play Yoda, and try to win on crazy objectives and play stuff that people hate to see. That's an answer. It's not the answer though, because I'll be completely honest. I think that some of these 800-point lists that are meant to be just like Anakin Padme, Yoda Padme, stuff like that are just like built to withstand so much aggression. Yeah, I mean they're definitely going to win. I think more on average more than if you're just trying to build a good objective list. Right now, at least, because again, blue player, loses the tie, right? It's not just recover that, on recover the supplies is a great example. Like I can do some cool things on recover, but if I lose one box and it comes to a tie, like it would be really cool if I was the winner of that, saying like, not only do you have to kill one of my box holders because I only have 3, but then if we're like, I'm going to win on the tiebreaker, assuming that if it's just a trade. And I think people forget that like the the point costs of units right now are so similar that you can accidentally have a trade of like 1 unit to 1 unit and still have a tie situation.
Yep.
It's not as uncommon as people like. Some people think like, well, no, because clothes cost this or Empire cost that, but like. I, I was surprised how close some activations can be in some of these lists, after especially after like 1 or 2 kills. Like you maybe kill a small unit and then a big unit, and then someone kills one of my big units, and it's like, oh, look at that, they cost within 3 points, which or four
Yeah.
points.
It,
It's like that's
it,
one upgrade.
yeah, it gets pretty scary. And I briefly said it. Like, had it come down to kill points, I was literally looking for 1 Voon and an IRG, and I lost 3 of my bikes with emergency transponders. But I also took 3 strike teams, and the IRG had protector and some other thing on it, and it would have been really, really close. And I think I would have ended up taking it. But I mean, that's kind of just the position you're in. If you're not 800 or you're not a red player, you're like, I have to try to either knock something off and go full aggression, or just, it's kind of like a disadvantage, kind of like what you were saying earlier. Like, you're blue player, you have all these objectives, but then, if you see a list on the opposite side and it's a, semi good player and they know what they're doing, then you're like, okay, well, I can't really afford to lose anything. I need to be a little bit more aggressive, because if it does tie, then I'm kind of just, SOL. Even though I made this list to perform for these exact objectives, I'm getting stiffed at the end, which, sucks, because I played a triple flutter list on round 2, and it ended in a tie, and I won based off of me being red player. And it wasn't a good feeling because it ended in a tie, and it was a good game, but it's like, all right, well, going down to kill points. Okay, well, I'm 800, so I just win now. And it's just like, it didn't really feel great, because I mean, the game was fun, but I mean, just ending it like that, I would much rather have a defined winner than having to go down to like the nitty gritty stuff.
I think another
Yeah.
good little like way to counter is to have almost all of your units equal um, in points. I mean, yeah, Rebels and CIS feel like have a bunch of cheap units. Like, so I think the Mark II is 38
Mm-hmm.
points, and then you have a Naked B1 unit is 38 points, and then you have bikes that are very similar in cost. And if you have got like a very similar list, and you can try to maybe separate those points out instead of trying to deck out all of your units, or maybe like deck out some really expensive units and not deck out all the other ones. Like, I don't know, that I mean that could be a simple strategy that some people could take? Do you think that that's viable at all?
I mean, that works for Shadow Collective too.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and then
I mean,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'd like to see objectives changed to have more of a harder time just ending in a tie. I don't know how that works exactly. I've heard a lot of great I've heard tons and tons of examples for sabotage of apps, because I think it's the one that people like looked at as saying like that one's the problem. I mean, I do think there's other ones that are a problem, but
KP.
yeah, I think key positions is another one. You know, you just if you have the same amount of things touch, like it's a tie game. You know, it's like in the because that's really what you 9 times out of 10. Like if we're being intellectually honest, we know that the middle position is the deciding piece, right? Yeah, there's some edge cases with a Maul who like flanks and takes the back cap or this or that, but like let's talk about the bulk case. The bulk case is that you fight for middle and it can tie real easy. So but if I look at those, what I was thinking was, and I'm not sure if this is an answer for all of them, but a reimagination of all the objectives, like literally just reprint them all, and then come up with solutions where it's almost impossible to tie, right? And so we're now, and as a side, I don't know if this is a consequence or a nerf, and that this is a whole separate conversation. In order for that to happen, we're probably going to have to relook at bounty and secret mission, because the fact that they cost 1 is kind of sometimes a problem and sometimes it's a non-issue, right? Like bounty on breakthrough doesn't feel as good as bounty on key positions, right? You tie the middle and you have your
Yeah.
bounty.
Yeah. I mean, there have been. I will say there have been cases where.
Or
Oh,
VAPs. I
damn,
mean,
it
again,
was the
yeah.
same guy. Hold on, it was the same guy. I did tie on breakthrough with
mhm.
bounty.
Right. And sometimes
So
bounty
and
can
it's
give
yeah.
you a tie. That's true.
Yeah.
But what I mean is that like if you have two 10-act lists and you deploy, let's just say battle lines, and one person is like setting up in the left corner and the other person's in the right corner, and then you're basically just saying like, yeah, I'm gonna score 10. The other guy's like, well, I'm gonna score 10 too. And they're both, I mean, you could argue that, well, you shouldn't have played that way, but some people look on deployment and realize and say, no, man. If I just stand toe to toe with you, you're gonna shred me. Your red saves on white saves. There's situations where someone's just gonna be like, I'm deploying in the corner and I want to be max range, and so then you can just have these weird scenarios where it's just 10-10, right? And then yes, bounty can be the tiebreaker of the 1 point and this that but what I'm looking at is it like on Sabotage the Vaps or on Hostage, Bounty and Secret Mission are nutty. Bombing Run, like it's nutty because it's like this one. This is the objective that typically ties, and then now all of a sudden you're saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna have an extra victory point." I look at the 10 activation Yoda list that I talked about. That won Gen Con, and that's a perfect example. I'm scoring Secret Mission every game. In fact, I've played that list 10 times now. I think I've scored Secret Mission 8 or 9. Can't I think the only time I didn't score Secret Mission was because my opponent conceded before I could do it. I mean, I'm genuine. It's like it's impossible to deny the Secret Mission in that list because it's designed around it, right? Doing blast off and the guidance, you're gonna score it, and it's always on the last turn of the game, and your opponent really has no way to counterplay it because you can't shoot R2 while he has the you know
Suppression.
the suppression on him. So it's just a funky list like that. And but on the flip side, um, you know, double bounty is a great example of where like how do you beat double bounty if you're playing like key positions? Like double bounty is a real nuisance against on key. Like so there, because I mean, yeah, you could argue I could bring 2 secret missions, but like, you really don't. But Empire
No,
seems
that
to be able to make 2 double bounty lists like pretty
Pretty easy.
easy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think objectives in a whole need to get relooked at so that like some of these other ways to win aren't nearly as swingy depending on the objective. I would even go as far to say that like the objective itself should have text that tells you how many VPs you get for a bounty on that objective, right?
Huh.
Be-
Okay.
because then it's like that. I don't know. I also feel like that could be really interesting, right? You know, to like say like this is an objective where I know if I bring secret mission, I get 4 extra VPs. I'm just throwing a number out there, right? You know, and maybe the total VPs you can score in the game are 20, right? Like, because again, you're trying to scale. Right now, we have a lot of these
Hmm.
games where you're dealing with 1 VP, 2 VP, you know, objectives, and sometimes it makes me wonder. I feel like that's super narrow. And also, I think that every single objective should have scoring throughout the game. I'm not a big fan of like key positions scoring all on turn 6.
Uh, no, because then you can get into a situation where, for example, let's just say you have a 10-act list versus the 10-act list. You pick your KPs, both respective players pick them. They're all the way in the back, and then the center is just, I'll admit it. I'm the first one to be like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna sit around and do nothing. I'm gonna wheelie with my bike for 5 turns. I'm gonna compulse move all in an L shape before I even dive. And then it's
Yep.
just kind of this back and forth: dodge, standby, move, dodge, dodge, standby, move, dodge, and it kind of forces one or the other person to, one, try to make a play, and if it works, then the other person's like, oh shit, okay, well now I gotta, oh, excuse me, now I got to go in and try to counter that play, and then the dominoes start to fall, this, that, and the third. Or you just sit there and do nothing. You try to make a play, and then you get punished for it because it's like, well, I tried to push the envelope to get this thing going, but now I just got whacked in the face because, oh, okay, here we go. Perfect example. It's happened twice. One I tried to do on KP. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go with Boba, try to make a play. He whiffed. He died. And then I was like, all right, cool. That turned the whole game because it's probably gonna tie and then I'm
Yeah.
gonna lose. And that happened. And then yesterday we were just going back and forth, dodge, standby. And I was like, you know what? I have to make a play here. Went out with Boba in the middle of, I don't think he had any cover whatsoever. I shot at a shore trooper team, one shot him, immediately turned the game into my favor. Then I hit him back and then just kept clicking off
Yep.
things to the din from like infinite range. And then he was like, okay, well now I got to go through and try to kill something now. And then he brought his ATST up further, and then I just stopped doing donuts with my bikes and just dove into him with the ATST.
Yep.
And then it's like back and forth, and that one ended on a tie. No, I won 2-1, but it was all decided within one round, and that wasn't even. It was around 5 that was decided because we were just not gonna do anything until it was time to move to the middle objective, which kind of sucks and it's boring, but that's just the way that the objective was written and designed.
Yeah, and that's why I've definitely felt like maybe the problem with list building in 800 and some of these different things, maybe it's just because of the design of the objectives, right? There is no advantage to bringing your deck against a lot of lists if everyone's running 800, right? You don't care. You genuinely don't care. You'd rather pick table edge 9 times out of 10 because right now I think, and this I don't have numbers, so someone's gonna be able to pull up a spreadsheet and prove me wrong. But it feels like I'd say about 2/3 of lists are 800-point lists in a tournament right now. About 2 out of 3 of my opponents, generally speaking, when I show up to a table, have no bid whatsoever. Like they're just trying, or if they are, it's so negligible. Maybe 799, 798. Just because they
Yeah.
didn't find a last little upgrade, but they're not bidding like to be when I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that 2/3, I feel like I'm just saying like the people who don't expect to be blue, they just you know. But
Yeah,
I might even be correct if it's at least 50% or better are all 800, which I
probably.
think historically was not the case. Like
Yeah.
before the change, I think that you would have been pretty oddballed out if you were just 800 all the time.
Yeah, I think. No, okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, circling back to bounty um, and secret mission, I'm kind of a different perspective where I don't think it should award victory points. I think it should be a set amount of kill points.
That could be cool too. And that's a lot of that is the flavor that I'm pitching, where if on one objective it said you get this on this objective. Maybe there's an objective that they can reimagine where it's really hard to score secret mission,
Mhm.
like given the game state and like what you'd have to do. So maybe they make it worth more, right? Like you were saying, it could be kill points, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
I think we need more
Because I
of.
think also, I mean, oh, go ahead,
No,
sir.
no, finish your thought. Finish your thought.
I mean, at least like right now, especially, it feels like that's not such a terrible idea because its acts are pretty much the same. Like, there's a little bit of variation, but it's averaging around 9 now. You still got your 10s. You still have you have more 8s now. You have a couple that are over 10 at 11 or 12, unless you cross over into France. And then, like we've been talking, everyone kind of wants to build to 800. So if you have the potential to essentially have your opponent bring like 850 points and they're only points that work for you,
Yeah,
it
points that didn't give them more power, but give
yeah,
you the tie breaking edge. Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah, I think
that'd
even
be cool.
that extra bid should go towards either kill points at that point if you need. Maybe you bid 12 points, but you get an extra 12 points or extra kill points at that point because you sacrificed 12 points, and you should be able to get that somehow, and or at least disincentivize ties or red player from trying to just defend. I think we do need to have that aggressor and defender again, and make the red player or the person closer to 800 points have to make the first kill, or anything like that. And then we need, I feel, more objectives like recover and or bombing run or stuff like that or hostage that requires at least just one of the objective holders to not have an objective, like because that makes it way more fun. With recover the supplies, if you shoot one or two of their objective holders and they can't hold it anymore, the game's done before turn 6 or hostage exchange. If they can, there's no way for them to make it back into the deployment by turn 6, then it's already over. Making these games a little bit more like faster in a way, rather than having to rely on just turn 6 itself, kind of like intercept and key positions and breakthrough. It's just way more fun, I feel like, to have objectives that require, you know, a faster play.
By the way, I feel like intercept ties a lot too, for me.
yeah. I mean,
It's
it has
like
the potential to easily.
it's like oh, they rushed the middle point, got shredded, right? So sure they scored 2-1, because they score on the second round, and then they're 2-1, so now we're at 4-2. And then because they got shredded, they have to retreat all their units. They don't want to lose all their kill points. They don't want to so then they give up mid. So then now on the last of the game, you score as the other player, you're going to score 4 points, and they're going to score 2. Oh, now you tied 6 and 6. And it happens, I wouldn't say a lot, but more than people.
It should.
Yeah, probably more than it should. Yeah, because given that people, at least that I played with for a while, they said, well, if you don't want ties, you should be playing things like intercept. And I was like, I don't think that's the one. Like that's not that's.
Mhm.
I definitely think boxes is probably recover is probably the one where people hit ties less, unless we're talking bounty, right? Bounty flips the script, but um, yeah, I don't know. That's why I think it'd be really awesome if there was like various different points where like what if one of the boxes you have to, I don't know, note it. Like each player gets a box. One box is worth 2 VPs, one box is worth 4 VPs, the center box is worth 5 VPs or something. So now you have this like weird like and I threw these numbers out there. I didn't think them through. So but like somebody out there will do the math where it like maybe grabbing just 2 of the boxes can still win me the game, you know, but I have to specifically play for like the 2 expensive boxes or something like that, or whatever. And if my opponent can score 3 boxes and they get the 2 cheapest ones and the middle one, maybe that wins again. And then I think that it adds layers of play. And again, if we're talking about a world where secret mission and bounty maybe don't award a single VP or still award a single VP, when you have someone who's doing the matrix of like what's possible, if the 1 point doesn't necessarily swing the entire game, I think that that's more healthy, personally. Because and what I mean by swing the entire game is like, I mean that it shouldn't immediately tie a game or win a game. I think that it should be a factor, but not be like the immediate like I got my VP, let's go. We're playing hostage exchange. I scored bounty. I'm gonna run into the corner and just huddle all my troops over here and know that I'll literally win the game just by existing for the rest of the game.
I think another thing that could be added is with supply drop. Maybe if they had added another card that said you gain secret mission or you gain something that can give you an extra victory point, or there was even with the boxes, like you were just saying. I was just thinking like some similar if a box counted different, like maybe the middle box counted as 2 instead of 1, something like that. Or with I have a Game of Thrones Risk, which is fantastic and so awesome, but other than that, they've got these objective style cards that it's secret to you that says if you take over 2 ports and or you control a certain area, then you gain an extra victory point kind of deal. So maybe if there was an open deck and you shuffled it and then either each player drew one or the blue player drew one, and it's like you gain an extra victory token if you blah blah blah. If we can somehow disincentivize ties or, again, give the blue player the power of breaking the tie, I think that would help the objectives a lot more. Or just introduce more objectives that are very similar to, hostage exchange or grid covered and stuff like that. But, yeah, having extra supply.
That's super cool, too. That's super cool too, and I liked the one thing that you did mention earlier, and I wanted to double back on it because I thought it was really, and I don't know if maybe I heard you wrong, but you said something like if your bid is counted towards your kill points at the start of the game, like sure, if red continues to win tiebreakers, that's cool, but let blue starts out with their bid as kill points. So like it's still
would
the
help.
same situation, right? Where red is going to win the tie, but they now have to come up with a creative way to score kill points in order to generate that tie.
Yeah, because if the blue player can start out with like 15, with a 15-point bid, and then gain 15 extra kill points, if it did come to a tie somehow, you've got 15 extra points that you can attribute to that.
Or said another way, the red player says like, okay, in order to get a tie, I got to score, you know, at least to get out of the tiebreaker realm, I need to score at least 15 kill points because that's what you have. Which, of course, there's no unit worth that. So but
You
it's
just
going to
gotta
make
kill
it more
something.
interesting. Yeah, they got to kill something, right? And then as the blue player, you're saying, well, okay, now I got to kill something that's worth that many kill points, but minus whatever your bid was, right? So you might be able to trade a cheaper unit and still be ahead of the game. I think that that'd be cool for blue. Again, the big thing that somebody said on I think the Trooper podcast was that like knowing your role at the start of the game, who's the aggression, who's the defense, right? Right now it's ambiguous, especially considering that you roll your tiebreaker at the end if it's in a tournament where it matters and they have to roll the 50-50. Like, I mean, I'd love to hear the community's ideas on like different ways because I think that there's probably a million different approaches, and I think that I'm not even super attached to my personal ideas,
Yeah.
but like that particular one that you mentioned where the getting kill points right off the rip, it's like that's not gonna, again, in most games it's not gonna matter. That only will matter in a tied game, right? Those extra few kill points. So and it's going to at least establish at the very beginning like who's going to win the tiebreaker, right? So I really love that. Again, I want to go into games knowing who's going to be the aggro player and who's going to be the defensive player, who can sit back and say, "Hey, I'm winning as long as I don't lose activations," and who's sitting there going like, "I got to make something happen." I would love that going into a game. I think that it would make it far more exciting to watch too. I know we don't like to talk about this sometimes because it's not a sport, but like I I mean I watch a lot of games streamed, and the exciting ones to me are always the ones where like people are like pressing W key and like just running at your opponent, and they're rolling lots of dice and attack models flying off the board, and
Or
that's what
Chewie
I
makes
want to
great
see.
saves.
Hey, hey.
Or Yoda whiffs.
Yeah.
I was gonna say is like I was only in that position strictly because of bad rolls earlier. Okay.
Yep. Hey, at the
No,
same time
you're
your
right.
Yoda was whiffing, mine was whiffing too, so it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah, it just happens.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Like I think on my second game, my my bikes survived 2 overrun attacks and didn't lose a model. They took like 2 wounds off of those each, and I had 3 bikes. That dude overran all of my bikes once, if not twice. And at the end of the game, one of them was still alive. And he pressed so far forward to do that, and then I was just like, no. And then I just blew him out of the water.
And
I was
that is
expecting those
far
bikes to just
more
waffle.
that's
But
far more
yeah,
enjoyable as a viewer to see something like that happen than the inverse, which is you did donuts for 4 rounds and then you alpha strike a unit off the board on the 5th or 6th round.
the duality of a man.
So like that's why so that's why I'm personally all for any situation where you can determine an aggressive player, because I'm on that guy's team. No, I know it worked out for you. No offense, but like I'm on his side. Just get those overruns, like make a play, like try to delete activations. I'm on board with that, and it would have been really cool if maybe that person was like, you know, the defense, that person was like the aggressor, right? We knew at the very onset of the game that he had to kill some of your stuff, so that it brings more sense to making a play like that. Because I think right now we're in a game state where people will look at it and go like, well, if he didn't need to do that because he was 800 points, then that's just throwing the game away, and that's
Yeah.
a little unfortunate. So that again, I think that anytime we can have clear roles in this game, I think that the viewers are gonna enjoy it. The players are probably gonna enjoy it better. But I don't know. Are there any other ideas you guys have to like making it more enjoyable and avoiding ties?
Well, I was gonna say, Grant, given that, say that just in case at the beginning of every game, no matter what, we started rolling to see who has to be the aggressor and who has to be the defender. Say that we've established that. Kind of going through the objectives. Do y'all have specific strategies for each objective if you had to be the aggressive player? Like if you're the one who has to start making plays, what are the things that are going through your mind during certain objectives? So if we want, we can start with with bombing run. So like if you are the person who has to go after and start making some plays, what's the first thing on your mind when you're playing bombing run and you've got to make some plays? What would be the strategy that you have?
What unit is going to make the play, and what is the likelihood that they can also make the play? Because I kind of think of it like there's a little bit of luck involved in it, but there's also like a statistical part of it. It's like you have to start thinking, okay, what unit is the best to make that play, and are they going to be able to put it on their back and make that play per se? And I would go a step further to even say that not every single faction has more than one unit that can do that. I think the only ones that come to mind for me personally, and I think it's for the entire Legion community, is probably Boba. Boba can make you a play, and he's statistically probably going to make that play happen. Or even somebody like Cad. I wouldn't put Cad as far or as high as Cad Bane. I wouldn't put Cad Bane as far in front of Boba because of the dice, but those are characters that can go in and make plays and change
Yeah.
the game from, okay, I was on the defensive side, now I'm the aggressor. Now the roles have flipped.
Sure, but I mean, like if you don't have bikes, your opponent has bikes. They're going to be able to get their bombs in fast. What are you thinking? So do you try to move everybody towards the incoming bikes and try to predict where they're coming from, or do you try to get a bomb through and sacrifice the other 2 bombs to try to go after the other people? Do you go after one of their bomb carriers and stay after that one bomb? Do you try to disarm every bomb unit? So what kind of plays do you think of?
I think that probably comes down more to turn 0. I think, especially if you don't have speeders, you're going to probably want to do one of two different mindsets. One being you hope they have something like Long March, so you've got as much time to try to do something about the bombs,
Hmm.
or you want something like Hemmed In, so you have a better chance with just your troopers to get in range.
So you're looking at deployments too. Like you're trying to, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
so you know your opponent is blue player. They've got 3 bikes. Bombing run is possibly like the second thing, or maybe the third or fourth thing that you know you can't wind up vetoing to, or you have to wind up getting into. I guess deployment. That's what one of the things that you're looking for is which one as well. Besides
Mhm.
setting up, like, so how would you set up, and what things would you? I mean, you were mentioning it. I didn't mean to interrupt. Just keep going.
No, you're good. Pretty much it's pick, just kind of focus in and kind of, well, if you can, outact also, because that'll help you. So you can time it better. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, if you're going for a more long range game, then worry more so about taking out a bomb carrier. If you want to do more of an aggressive aggro list, then look for the closer ones. Like Danger Close really messes with everybody because I mean it's practically swapping board sides.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, stuff like that, I guess.
Do you even care
Yeah,
about getting
just
your own bombs through? If like you know you're disadvantaged because they've got speeders, you don't. Do you even care about trying to get your bombs in, or do you just care about trying to take out theirs?
well, if I'm doing like an aggro list, I don't really care about theirs so much because for the most part, you can probably work it into a way where if you've gone for a closer deployment like um, Hemmed In or Danger Close, or if you even want to do something like Disarray, because it's not terribly far apart, but it's also really awkward for them to try to stop you. There are ways for your list to get over there to still do your bombs. Um, so that's I would if I'm going for like a closer, more aggregate list, then I would focus on scoring my bombs and just get as advantageous as a deployment as I could.
You got to get the bombs off because, I mean, yeah, I mean, in every single instance that I've been kind of stiffed and I'm stuck in a situation like that, I'm just like, okay, well, if I can at least get my bombs in, I know they're going to get their bombs in. Then it comes down to, okay, the objective's complete. Now I have to worry about taking units out. And depending on the player and, the deployment situation, most bikes are probably just going to be out of the fight until they drop that bomb. Like, it doesn't make sense for them to start fighting with a bike round one when they have 6 rounds to drop a bomb. Realistically, they're probably gonna drop it like turn 2 or 3, and then after that, then they'll start using their bike. So you can at least think, okay, their bikes are gonna zoom around and do donuts for maybe a round, and then drop the bomb because it's one bomb per round that you can detonate. So it wouldn't make sense to go over there, drop all 3 round one, because then you're like, okay, well, now I have time to try to go over there and pick one up. But, at least for the first 2 rounds, those bikes are not going to really be doing much. They might just move, dodge, move, shoot once, and then move again. But then they leave themselves open for a shot, and now somebody else has to go pick the bomb up. So I would just focus on just getting the bombs, setting them off, and then starting to go for like a more aggressive approach of trying to just knock things out. But if you ignore the bombs, don't even worry about them, then all it takes is one bomb for you to go down on, and there's no point to whatever you're trying to do now. Now you're just fighting out of a bigger hole.
Yeah, I mean, I play pretty much exclusively Yoda, and I think that there's been some times where like my opponent gets an unlucky draw, they have to go with a bike and drop a bomb before I've guidance, and you know, like it happens. It's not. I mean, I wouldn't bank on it, but like people forget about that, right? Especially on like if it is a 1 pip turn, I can just tell that, hey, go walk over there, pick that up for me real quick. You know,
Mm.
like there's little cute things that can happen. That being said, like lately, I've been playing Fluttercrafts and stuff, so it kind of just feels like a trade. I was running 2 Fluttercrafts and using Yoda as a bomb carrier in one of my testing games, and it feels so good. I mean, you just piggyback Yoda on one turn, get him into an advantageous position, then you just plays 2 pip burst of speed, move up, drop a bomb, slice something up, force push more guys into the bomb, jump into some new engagement, and then like detonate that bomb inside of their entire army. Like I think my bomb wound up doing like 7 wounds against a player, just the bomb
That's
alone.
awesome.
Not even including Yoda and all the rest of it. It felt unwinnable. He's like, yeah, it's like turn 3. He's like, I'll just go ahead and scoop because he's like, your Yoda's full health. I lost 2 units. You've already got a bomb. Your flutters are definitely scoring the bomb, right? He's like, now I have to like battle back kill points plus the fact that you know um I can just use my flutters to like as I'm going in to shoot, I can just shoot out the tail and shoot whatever was carrying a bomb from his side. So like there's some things that you can do. And I don't always and so I definitely agree with like, bikes being the bomb carrying king. And a lot of times they do nothing for most of the game while doing that. I think that's the one thing that I'll just tell people is like capitalize on the fact that they probably aren't going to be using three out of their 10 activations, 3 out of their 9 activations for at least a little while because if they drop a bike bomb, the amount of time it's going to take to walk over there and pick it up and then waddle it back over to your deployment and drop it off, I mean, there's not a lot of units that are fast enough to do that. So,
All right, and then
so they're gonna be real safe with those spikes most likely, and you can take advantage of that and just use your you'll have number advantage, right? If your goal is to just waddle up as a you know as a single force and start the engagements before they want to, you might be able to get them to drop a bomb, and that's oftentimes enough to to swing the game.
Like, there's one right now that can do both. Make an attack on turn 1 and drop a bomb on turn 1. It's that new Flutter.
Oh yes, they absolutely
Wouldn't the
could do that.
attacking
Yeah,
run.
Yeah, attack run.
yeah.
So that's the one to
Boo,
watch out
boo.
for.
so avoid bombing
Yeah.
run against the Wookiee Defense Force.
Yeah, I mean,
Literally
the
anything
six
that
Wookiees-
involves you to like pass them. Bombing run, breakthrough,
Yeah,
existing, just yeah. It's
And
yes,
too many wounds to
I mean,
too many
yeah.
wounds to deal with.
Six Wookiees. If you're doing the all Wookiees, like not even doing flutters, like that's still pretty good. They make for decent enough carriers, especially with the extra speed 1 move every now and again.
yes, that
Um,
is good. And
yeah,
Ewoks, even Ewoks get. So I think Logray has the. I
yeah.
forgot what card it is that you can.
Herbal medicine
No,
or
you expel it, and then anytime
the
a unit
mhm.
is killed, then you get to make a free speed 1 move with a unit or something like that. I forgot.
That can help for sure.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah. It's his unique card. He gets to use it once per game. He taps it, and then anytime the Ewok player gets a kill, like a full activation kill, he can choose a bright tree to give him a speed 1, which can, I mean, it adds up if you can get a kill or 2. I mean, obviously
yeah,
that's a card that you're going to be running, like it's. I mean, I wouldn't bank on that to drop bombs, but
Mhm.
well, it would be
I mean,
good.
it definitely messes up people's math when they're trying to think of like how many turns before you're gonna drop a bomb, and then they get this one little extra speed 1, and then they're like, oh, actually, I'm dropping it on turn 3 now.
And it could be good for
So
not just bombing run, but like hostage exchange and or recover the supplies. Because even with Leia's
yeah,
2 pip, and then on the same turn, maybe you even play that card. And so you get like a free speed 1 move whenever you get the order, and then when you kill something, you also make a free speed 1 move, and then it's your turn. You can get to make another 2 movements. So I think Ewoks, even though they're just trooper units, have an easier time, and the defense force have an easier time at bombing run than just normal battle forces. And then
probably that's true for the trooper lists. That's probably
yeah, and so if you're on breakthrough and you don't have enough units, so maybe with these lower activation lists like 7, 8, maybe 9 activation lists, and maybe you wind up playing a 9, 10, or 11 activation list, and you are at a disadvantage for breakthrough. What do you do? Do you set up very defensively and just not even try to score, or do you try to like break your army in half and try to go into score, or what are your strategies for being at a disadvantage for breakthrough?
If I have more acts, I'm W key all the way. I'm
Yep.
I'm marching at you. If I got more activations and we're on bombing, oh man, I literally I've already won the game. Like like I just send my guys into your face and just delete things. Like
Right.
yeah,
But
it's gonna be a way easier time. But it's only when you have less activations that it's scary.
yes. So that's what I'm asking. Like, if you're at a disadvantage, what do you do?
Oh, when I have less acts, oh man, just
Avoid danger close at all costs.
yeah, just try to ban a deployment that's gonna make it so that they dip their bombs immediately. I guess that's about all you can do. Turn 0 is really your only hope, and at that point, you just have to see how your opponent's gonna play.
Yeah, because the person who's probably at an advantage and or blue player who's got more activations and or trying to go with breakthrough, they probably have danger close, hemmed in, advanced positions, and probably major offensive. So you're probably somewhat screwed, and you're probably going to try to play major offensive for the most part. And I guess I've set up to try to play defensively. Like I had 9 activations, they had I think 12, and so I knew even if I tried to run, they're going to have way more. Even if they left three units behind to try and take out a few of mine, I'm still at a big disadvantage. So I'm just trying to set up, try to create a wall, try to maneuver the minis to where they can't even move. Like they try to make a speed 1 or a speed 2 move, they're going to wind up overlapping my base. So there's no way they can keep going. So that was one thing I tried to do: narrow them into like a corner or in between some terrain to where there's no way they can try to make it through. And just do what you can there, or just send your entire army and forget about them and make them try to get out of their cohesion, or maybe try to get out of their comfort zone and send a few units your way. Maybe you can try to wipe out a few. I'm not exactly sure how you guys would go about it if y'all were at a disadvantage though. So I'm just like anyone who's listening who usually has to come up against breakthrough, and maybe they've got a fewer units, or maybe they're playing clones and they have 8 stacked units. You're at a disadvantage against an Empire 9, 10, 11 act list. So I didn't know if you guys had a counter to breakthrough.
If it's only a 1 act difference, it's not so bad. It's once it gets the 2 acts or more difference that it can get a little squirrely, because especially at 10 acts, that's not necessarily a lot of squishy units that you can try to like plink off if you're playing a lower act list. But once you get like those like 11 or more act lists, it's not as bad because typically they're gonna have to go for cheaper units. Granted, that changes especially with Ewoks, because their cheap units are at minimum 6 wounds.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
At least like with CIS, you have to worry about AI. So like there, it's do what you can to take out the commander, and if it's like a tactical droid, get rid of the direct.
Yeah, I'm
But
usually pretty bold against CIS. I go pretty hard and try to break the command chain situation, because I've watched a CIS player like their face just drain when they realize that they're like, oh, I'm gonna have to AI attack now on every turn.
mhm,
I'm not gonna score any more points. Like my guys
yep.
are just they're gonna shoot and maybe move or whatever. It's like it's just like you're like, yeah, they're like, I can't. There's nothing they can do at that point. So that's something to consider. I tend to try to shoot um I try to shoot their like HQ uplink guy early, sometimes with like
Mhm.
my snipers and stuff, and get them to like want to keep them way back as well. So there's some things you can do against CIS, but not so much against the teddy bears.
No.
And then so
Don't play breakthrough against teddy bears. I guess maybe that's just the moral of the story. You're red.
yeah.
Don't let it happen.
See, I tried that as like a fun game. I tried to play against Ewoks, a 12 act Ewok list with a 9 act, Maul Mando list, just at a
Mhm.
disadvantage on purpose, just to see if there was a way to somehow survive or get around it, and yeah, it did not work.
Ewoks, that was my first experience at Crucible, and it wasn't breakthrough, but it was SAB, and I underestimated how frustrating they are.
With dodges,
Um,
cover, suppression. Ugh.
it's just it's the cover really.
Low profile
It's just
on a humongous unit.
yeah, because that was Anthony's friend, I think, Ryan, who ended up in the top 4. He was one of the 2-in-1s that got in on Friday. And yeah, playing like that ATST is it's something else.
It's
Just
scary.
having
It-
that
it's
line of sight blocking the stupid chicken legs.
And the fact that it's going to get
yeah.
really
I
close
mean,
before it's revealed.
Yeah.
hmm I mean, I could sit here and tell you I played against that list for I don't know how many weeks, and I was like, this ATSC is just annoying. And then finally, I think 2 weeks ago, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna dive in there and just make you gain a wound, because once you gain a wound, you lose incognito.
Mm.
When you
And I just
defend.
dove a bike. Yeah, when you defend and you take a wound, yeah, you
I don't
lose
even think
it.
you have to
So
take the wound. Just whenever you defend against an attack at all.
Yeah,
I
because
don't
Oh, yeah.
think
anyone
you
at
lose
range.
incognito, right?
You lose incognito when you've defended or attacked.
we'll have to double check that. I thought you had to take a wound to lose incognito.
I didn't think that you had to take a wound. I know it's at range 1. Yeah,
Consular.
right. At range 1, I think if at range 1, if you're like if you are at range 1 of an incognito unit, you can still
can
fire
attack
at
it.
them. Yeah, you can still attack it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to make it lose its incognitos because now you're at range 1. Because K2SO
Well,
has
for that
incognito.
unit specifically. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know about the whole defend thing. I thought it was only them attacking. That would have made a difference.
See, I mean, that's I didn't know about that until it took me like 4 weeks, and I was like, wait, I could just dive into you and just make you lose
Yeah.
it.
All right, so here you go, guys. If a unit with incognito ever performs an objective card action,
Yep.
performs
that.
an attack, or defends against an enemy attack, it loses.
and you
So
just
they
have to
don't
be at
have to
range
even if
1.
it's
They
like a
don't
wound.
have
Okay,
to take
cool.
damage.
Yeah, you just have to be at range 1 and make that attack, and then boom, you're good to go. So, yeah, you might have to sacrifice.
Which by the way, I think means that minefield winds up being really good against them, because then the mines will break incognito, right?
Is that an attack though, or is that just a condition effect?
It's a condition, I think.
But it's an attack, because remember
Yeah, it doesn't specify enemy,
it
right?
does not say no. It says
Okay.
it says or defends. Oh, it does say enemy attack. Excuse me. So no, it would have to be a mine like from like Sabine,
Like Cad Bane,
Cad,
something like
Sabine.
that.
or Cad Bane mine. Those would be enemy attacks. Yeah.
We'll say, well, I prefer hostage and minefield because that is a fun trick.
Yeah.
Using your hostage to blow up the other hostage on turn 0.
Yeah. I mean, sure.
Let's
Why
get
not?
it.
It's neutral effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
And then so if you are disadvantaged, I would say, let's see. Well, I know with hostage exchange, if you've got a force user, you're pretty much going to win. If you don't have a force user, you're pretty much out of it. And you're probably going to try to, not play hostage exchange. But say, you don't have a force user, you're playing hostage. Do you try shooting with your hostage unit and then moving, and then just try to get all of your, like Boba Fett or anyone who's got the ability to get close, or do you just try to double move and just try shooting at your opponent? Because I'm going to try to go through almost every objective as much as we can, as fast as we can.
Depends, right? I mean, I think CIS can get away with not CIS, excuse me, Shadow Collective. I think they can get away with it. I've watched a full unit of Black Suns just like go, hey, "What's up, buddy?" and
that
aim
Magna.
shoot. Like they're just like, yeah, they just aim shoot on the first turn, just like, all right, deleted you. And then they're like, I got red saves. We'll see if I die. I might not die or whatever. Like, I've watched it happen. They just put the game into a very awkward game state. Or they could just move, shoot, or whatever. But like, yeah, it's crazy. Depends on the terrain and stuff. So I think that sometimes you shoot with your hostage, but Yeah, depends on what your core is. I think a case could be made for maybe Wookiees. So like I don't know, like w- yeah, maybe since they can count as core now. I don't know. I probably still run with them. To be fair, just guidance. Run out 4 moves on one turn. Just get them safe. It's probably the right thing to do. I don't know. You can actually do some really really crazy things if you're willing to um go with like Yoda. You can tell the Wookiees you have 2 actions, and I've actually told them to move and then stand by, and then with my 2 guidance actions on the very first activation, and then when they move their hostage, I shoot it, right? And then when they get to go, I move and then I shoot them again. So I've actually gotten 2 shots with my hostage carrier on the first turn against the enemy hostage carrier that way. Uh, oh,
Or on
not
the second turn.
on the second turn. Excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah, on the
Yeah.
second turn. What to kill them, right? Because
Yeah.
they're so close. Like you pass each other, right? You like you swap, and then you do that, and then because the moves are so short, your range 2 shot for like going, the range 2 standby is still long enough. I didn't mean first turn,
You're good.
second turn. But yes, like just to kill them, because then it's like I'm killing your hostage. My guy's over here by me. I've got force barrier. I'm gonna protect my dudes. I'm gonna like do those kinds of things. If I have boil, I try to like absorb some shots and stuff. Really map dependent, really list dependent on whether you're shooting with a hostage, I'd say.
And I also feel like it's
Um,
very tough to pick a very good hostage unit because, yeah, mortars and MKs are really good because they've got a bigger base and they still move speed 1. They've got courage 2 naturally. But I think Black Sun is also a really, really good hostage unit for, I think, B2s
6 HP red saves. I mean, like already, right?
with a
Courage
possible
3.
surge.
They're not gonna get suppressed. And when they're passing the other guy, if you can play an aggressive pip, you just go with them, and then immediately when they can shoot, they just turn around and say blast the crap out of the hostage that
Yeah.
on the first turn that you're able to shoot, because they'll get that range 2 shot, maybe range 1. I don't know if I would make it a range 1 shot, to be fair, because that means that you're pretty aggressively keeping them back. But you can get a range 2 shot for sure, and their range 2 pool is
12 dice,
disgusting.
possibly. Yeah. If you got 6.
It is, yeah, it is 12. Yeah, it's 12 dice. Yeah,
Yeah.
6 and 6. So
And then you have a surge
that's
token for offense or defense, too.
And independent aim.
independent aim.
Yeah. I mean, one thing to think about too, if you're going up against someone that is using an MK or a mortar, and you've got regular troopers as your hostage carrier, think about going with them early so that you can move and stand by, so that you can try to block out their MK from going anywhere or their mortar from going anywhere
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah, you move, cohere your guys in a weird like little line so that their big fat base can't move anywhere fun. And it basically makes them have to do 2 moves to kind of go around you, and then you just trigger your standby and get your full move both times.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then, so say you're at a disadvantage in recover the supplies because you mostly have either vehicles and or bikes and or MKs or mortars, or some people who are creature troopers. Those cannot pick up an objective. So you're probably shooting only the trooper units with thumbs that can go after objectives and ignoring the rest of them. And or what are you doing for recover the supplies if maybe you are at a disadvantage and you've got like three creature troopers or maybe 3 bikes, and then you've got your MKs or M2s, or you just have a few force users. Are you specifically trying to so units can pick up multiple boxes? Yes. Now, do you try to designate a unit to do that, or do you try to what are your thoughts on recover the supplies if maybe again you've got those bikes?
I used to play a bunch of rebels, and I would do that a lot. I would just say like, this guy's gonna hold 2 boxes, and he's gonna sit behind that rock for the rest of the game. And just deny my opponent the ability to like interact with those 2 boxes. And then I would typically play. I mean, at the time when I was playing a lot of rebels, it was probably a lot of operative Luke or something, and I would probably just say like, I'm gonna flank him around the table, and I'm gonna deny you some boxes because white save armies don't really like to go out for the middle box. You get shredded. There's not really anybody who wants to pick that up. And if you make your Luke pick it up, then you're paying 190 points starting out just to go pick up a box and run away and hope that he lives. You're probably going to lose the game overall if that happens. So I usually don't. I try to shred the people picking up the middle box and make it unadvantageous, hopefully, and then just try to like kill a box carrier so that I can make. Again, I don't like ties, so I wanna kill your. I want to make it so that at the very end of the game, I've killed your box carrier, and then I win 2-1.
Yeah, I feel like
But-
trying to section off 2 units to go pick up your back objectives kind of takes a unit out of the game because you're spending those 2 units running after a box and trying to claim it and get somewhere safe rather than engaging in the fight and trying to protect that middle box until you can try to run and
Yeah.
grab it. So it might be
That's
easy.
why it's like one unit just to I mean, you're playing rebels, right? So you're probably 10 activations or more anyway. And I would just use like one sniper, and I'm like, all right, Steve, you're gonna go pick up this box, and you're gonna go pick up this box, and then you're gonna stay hidden and not even work, not even snipe anymore. You're I mean, it's a rebel sniper. They miss anyways, right? So like
Mm.
black white, like they're crit fishing. So I just tell Steve to go stand behind the building and just chill. And if my opponent's playing a bunch of stuff like bikes and things, I might reconsider that. Like if I think that they can just send them along a table edge and swoop in at me at the end of the game, I may not do that, but that's not always going to be the case. Yeah, recover's a really tough one for a lot of lists, especially if you're running not as many thumbs.
Mhm.
And that's the problem with rebels right now is that you kind of have to take MKs, right? Like you have to. I don't.
You really need to take some
Yeah.
MKs. I mean,
And FDs and
And
Yep.
FDs. Yeah, you're leaving a lot of thumbs out when you're playing rebels at this stage of the game now.
especially echo base because of all the FDs that you're possible and or maybe the air speeders and the Mark IIs, and you're really left with just vets and your
Abatons.
objectives or operatives, I should say.
Although to be fair, I guess right now Cassian's pretty popular, and I suppose you can always have K2 go pick up the middle box.
Or have
just sit there incognito.
Incognito basically the whole game, and you're just like, all right, turn 6, I'll pick up the box. Now
that,
you
or
gotta kill me all in one turn.
if you do bring the 3-pip K2 has, you could just have Cassian pick up the box, and then K2 just you sacrifice K2 for that they cannot attack Cassian that round or even the second round.
Sure.
After picking up the box, and
Yeah.
then you've got that for sure for the most part. I've seen
Yeah,
that happen.
I'd say Cassian and Ahsoka combo is probably one of my favorite rebel lists right now. I know it's placed pretty well in a couple tournaments. Second place at. I'm thinking I'm probably got
Was
the
it
name
Nova
wrong.
or
It was Austin won with I think Cad Bane and a bunch of Magnas, or maybe it was Asajj Magnas. And then I think Michael, he goes by Smiley Smile on Legion Discord.
okay.
Yeah, his name's Michael. He was playing. He got second at that turn with Cassian, Ahsoka,
I think that was probably Lone Star.
Lone Star.
Okay.
That's
And then-
exactly it. That's
Yeah,
exactly
Nick was in the top, or Nick Bobnar was top 4 with the same list in Nova.
That's right.
And then so let's see what was next. Payload. So say that you have fewer activations.
Don't take it.
Or well, yeah, right. You don't want to play it. I don't think anybody wants to play it, which is why I think new objectives would be really amazing, and or at least add.
Just make
Actually,
it float again.
I'm enjoying
Just make it
Payload right now.
float again.
I'm not gonna lie.
no.
I
Is-
like the chaos.
Payload,
The
like,
chaos,
hey,
yeah.
no.
It's because you have
Yeah.
Yoda.
At least if I'm
No.
blue. At least if I'm blue. If I'm red, not so much.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Because more than likely, you might not make it. So
Oh.
do you just go for attrition? Do you just go for your own payload? Do you try to even go after the other person's payload? Like, what are you thinking when you're playing payload?
My
then?
goal is that their payload doesn't move an inch. That's my goal. Because I don't know what I'm doing half the time when I play payload. I'll be the first to admit. I don't have a ton of
So-
reps on it. So
It depends. Are
Yeah.
you going towards each other? Do you have like endpoints that are close to each other's? Or are you crossing in the night and not seeing each other? Or just passing in the night?
yeah.
Because if you're just passing in the night, you just need an activation to kill.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's tie game so long as you can make sure that you're at least getting the same amount that they're going to get. That's all that matters. But if you're actually going to cross, then if you can, you could always try, if you have like good LOS blockers, you can move up the majority of your stuff. Like in the case of like the Wookiee Battle Force, what I should have done was hidden behind some line of sight blockers, waited for his payload to come to me, and then just sprung out. I just wanted to hit W too hard and ran into the open, unfortunately, a little too early. But if not that, then like tanks are great at blocking it up.
Buses too. I've had a decent amount of reps with that and the AA5. All you have to
Mhm.
do is just let it survive long enough and let it block that person's path. Granted, your payload may not be able to path that, move across the path too, but depending on what you're running with your AA5 and Shadow Collective, something's coming out of that bus and they have something to say about that payload. It's
Mhm.
just kind of, I don't know. I feel like more of the times that I've paid payload, it's face to face. It's very rare that, we're passing by each other unless somebody's like, I just don't want to do it. And then I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine, I guess. But more times than I can count, round two, it's like, all right, we're gonna cross paths here pretty shortly. So let's see whose dice are hotter. And then you go into, 4 to 6 to 8, dice pools, and then stuff starts falling down, and then you'll find out really quick who's the winner after like round 2 or 3.
Actually, one other thing I thought of is, because I did this at ACO back in June. If you're red in payload, if they've already placed where your payload is going to end up going, and in the case of like this was major offensive, and he had it above the thick part of my deployment, there was another piece of terrain that was outside of range, or that I could select, that was in that same area but wasn't like too close to his, or whatever the rules were. I can't think of it right now. And I essentially just got to play the waiting game in my deployment zone and just had a couple guys walking my payload through my deployment zone to get there. So
And part that's partly why I just don't even like put payload in my list anymore, is because there's going to be terrain where you're just like, oh crap, you can choose that one. Well, oh well. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
That's
so
another
terrain dependent.
reason. Yeah, that's another reason why I don't like being blue player. I like being able to react to whatever the other person's doing, because it
It
doesn't
shouldn't
happen
choose
most
a
times,
terrain
but there.
piece payload.
Yeah,
It should just be a spot on the table. It should say a spot, that is outside of this many distance from, all deployment zones, or whatever, that
yeah.
way it's fairly, I don't know. Someone smarter than me can go and choose the correct wording, but
Or
yeah,
they could
like
just make it how it used to be.
just like Sabotage the Vaps. You place your little token, like this is the thing, there it is, and I get why they want to do as a terrain piece. I think I get why, because then it, like, it brings some of the, like, oh, the terrain now matters more, and the way that, you build the table, and I think that they like to encourage, some of that type of thing, but like, let's be honest, I think that when people build tables, they're not always thinking like, okay, this is where the terrain piece should be on payload, because they don't know the deployment that's going to be picked. They don't know the all of the infinite number of factors. So I think the people building tables are making them look cool and have a diversity of cover types, and that's about where they end. So when you go to
well, and
pick that piece,
yeah. Well, and just bumping throughout the day. Like the
Yeah.
table doesn't
yeah,
look the same after game one versus game three.
that was hilarious. That happened to me at a tournament. I actually was playing on a table, and somebody was coming by, and after the game was over, he's like, "Did you guys put that there?" And I was like, "No, that's where it was." He's like, "Well, in my game, I had it on round one. It was on the other end of the table." I was like, "Why is it on the?" He's like, "How did they go from literally one side of the table to the other?" And I told him, I was like, I don't know. I didn't do it. I showed up. It was over here. I thought it was weird too, but we show up to the table, we play with it where it is. But yeah, that's genuinely happened where bumping, not even bumping. Sometimes people are like, hey, let's put our cards out, right? Like to to do the ban phase or whatever. They move terrain and they put it back where they remember. Maybe they don't remember a piece, or they didn't get it right, and there's nothing particularly wrong with that, mind you. Like, I don't think that I'm not advocating that those players,
Yeah.
when you show up to the table, if you don't like a piece of terrain, I've actually called TOs before and I've said this piece of terrain in the middle is going to make hostage exchange nightmare, and the TO just picks up the middle piece and swaps it with something else. Like, literally has happened to me where I'm like, all right, cool, thanks, and and my opponent was saying the same thing. He's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to deploy our hostages on top of like a building, or something weird like that. Like, can we switch? Could we switch it? And the TO was like, absolutely, switch it. If neither of you want it, then you can switch it. So, but payload. The problem with payload is like now the person who brought payload, they're disincentivized to agreeing to switch that terrain piece out for you, right? Because now they have a tactical advantage, right? Of saying like, no, actually, I want to keep it impossible for you to score. That's why it's in my deck or whatever. Like, yeah,
Now,
it's rough.
I was gonna say, if you're when you're playing Sabotage now, if what you could do to make it better, but there's no way to do it. But I think I have found a way to fix Sabotage, is just to put a evaporator in the middle that's got no wounds on it, and whoever needs to
Well,
be
it has to start at 2, right? To be neutral.
Or even just have it
start at
where
2,
it can
yeah,
only be scored
sorry.
one way,
Yeah,
one
yeah.
way or the other. So it can only go up to 2 or only go down to 0. It starts at 1 wound.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
something like that even is fine. I think if they put something in the middle for everyone to have to rush over, maybe the other evaporators would be closer to the middle so that everyone has an easier time accessing your opponent's Sabotage or moisture evaporator.
Or make
So
the
it's
third one a
just
blue one again.
intercept the Sabotage, intercept the moisture evaporators, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that would be cool, and or with intercept the transmissions. Maybe the middle one is maybe I don't know about the other ones, but yeah. I was gonna see.
I feel like you just need to change the scoring of that one, like the point values, so it's less likely to end up on even matching numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna go one further, and I was gonna say something like, it would be really cool if one evaporator had to be placed inside your deployment zone. One has to be placed range 2 outside of your deployment zone. One in the middle. Now you have this kind of like long chain evaporators along the board, and then you can even give them unique point values, right? Where like maybe the one in your deployment zone scores 1 point a turn, the outside one is 2, and the center one is 3. So you're super incentivized to tap the middle one, but you don't have to, and maybe you can actually go to your opponent's evaporator, but you always have your home evaporator that you need to keep somebody hanging back there. It's like, I mean, these are like, again, we probably can come up with an infinite number of ways to solve VAPs, but
even with intercept, maybe instead of that last last turn, every one of them being 2, maybe just the middle one is 2, and the rest of them are still counting as 1, and so that could possibly create a winner.
Or just have different points on odd and even rounds.
So constant scoring.
The constant scoring. That way, it's not like a big waffle either way, and then it's like, okay, I'm up.
Yeah, starting on turn 2, you score 1. Then on an odd turn, you score 2 per, and then back to 1. Then back.
Yeah,
to
so
2, and then
go back between 2, 1, 2, 1, and if they wanted to leave it at everything double the last round, I guess that would be okay. But at least have some sort of consistency, because then that also eliminates people that have mirror matches where they're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go score, move back, move, hide, move, hide. We both have 10 acts. There's no reason for me to
If there's
go
a
out there
building
and
near
move stuff.
the middle too for one
Yep.
player, it's disgusting.
Yep.
They just
And then it's just yep.
Well, I think I like Shadow's idea quite a bit there. Just making the center one on the last turn 2 points, because at that point, then it's like every round there's 3 points on the board for 2 and 4. So you can be 2-1. Now you got 4-2, and now there's a potential of more than likely 3 points going to one player. Like that's gonna gum up the works and the math of like
It would mean that if you made only the middle one count for 2, what it would mean is that if you were the winning player going
Mm.
into round 6, you have 4 to 2, right?
Yep.
Which would mean that their home node would bring them to
No, it's still the
3.
same thing. Never mind.
Their home node would bring them to 3, and then if you were the winning player and you just left your old point and you just scored 2 in the middle, it'd be like you know. So like that's kind of interesting. So it's like, hey, I paid the price of being aggressive. I lost units, but now I can take my whole army and I don't have to hold the old point to keep my 2
Yeah.
for the round. But I mean, I don't know. I I would love, like I said, I would love to see something more. I like Anthony's idea a lot, where if every round was scoring, then you really can't leave, right? Because I think the problem that we have now is that you last into the objective, you try to squeak the points, and then you spend the next turn getting distance, getting behind cover, and then you go back to the scoring turn and you try to squeak back in and score some points, and so you're trying to you're trying to, I don't know. It's like you're playing peekaboo with like the objective, and I think that that's less interesting than just, you know, making it so that, well, hey, if you retreated on that turn and I aggressed, not only am I going to get onto the point and I'm going to score this turn now, but next turn I'm already on the point, and then now I can start being, like, it would make you have the incentive to like get to the point and stay on the point, which is an interesting idea. And that's maybe why scoring every turn is important.
Yeah. Well, that's really it, and all for objective talk. I know we didn't really get to cover key positions. There's really, I mean, that's just an attrition based
Do
and just trying
donuts
to
for
make it to
5
the
rounds.
middle.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
If I didn't have to do that, I don't like doing that. I want to use the units that I have, but if my things are going to be useful until turn 6, then sure, go ahead, rip some donuts, rip some wheelies. I don't care. They're not going to do anything. Like, what are they going to go fly around to get shot, and then I'm down 3 on the middle KP? Nah, I'm good. I'm fine.
Right.
I'm the sometimes in the player that's like, okay, cool, I'll tie it. That's fine. Let's see what in your army can last. So I mean, if there was a way to get rid of that kind of mentality, then that would be a little bit easier. Like, I'm a little bit hesitant to say to have defined roles, but I think that would be the only way that you would have less ties. And it sucks a little bit because I don't really like having an assigned role as like a defender or
I
an
think there needs to
attacker.
be, no matter what. If you're gonna have
Yeah,
a game,
and that's
you need to have
mhm.
an aggressor and a defender.
Key
Yeah.
positions should score every round. You mark 5 pieces of terrain, and then you roll to figure out which are the hot points for the next round. Round
Shadow
one, they
Okay,
don't.
Shatterpoint.
Yeah. Hey, I've been enjoying Shatterpoint. That's all I'm just saying. Like that'd be really really cool. I don't know. I'm just saying, like,
I wouldn't be
make it
surprised.
spicy, make it exciting.
I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing something similar in Legion to the Shatterpoint, like objective style stuff. And maybe that's why.
I mean, if they want to keep it tactical, they could just start at random, right?
Mhm.
And then like you now know that, like, okay, the ones that were on last turn, they flip. So like you define it in the beginning of the game. You don't know which ones are going to be active on round 2, but once they're active, you now know round 2 is these ones, round 4, or whatever, right? Because again, I think that's the difference with Legion. They try to keep the game more tactical and less random. I mean, despite it being a dice game, but like, more
Yeah.
tactical is cool. And so yeah, I would say, like, add an element of randomness at the beginning and then just make it defined, and then that could give you the best of both worlds.
So then would you have to forego all types of deployments? Everybody has the same style of deployments and a set like randomized objective area? Because I feel like there may be a corner case where you still have certain deployments, but then these like you would have to go through every single combination of like deployments and or terrain, and then to see how to like spread those out. That way it is truly random.
I think, well, I definitely think that, it would need to get a good hard look, but I mean, I think that there's far too many objectives that are, maybe they all say this. They all say that the thing that you need to choose has to be outside of a deployment zone, or some,
Yeah, except for
not some.
payload.
Yeah, except for payload, that one can be like what partially
Yeah.
partially in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what you change. Maybe again, but part of the idea would be that you're adding more pieces to select. So some of them will inevitably be outside, and some of them will inevitably be inside. Um, I don't know.
I think it would be interesting. So to say it's a 5 objective thing, like you're saying, and it's rolling a red defense die each one. Each point or 2 points, one for each player, is active every single round.
Hmm.
The other 3 points are on a die roll, but you could just vary their point value based off of um, which one is activated. So if
Oh,
you're
I
rolling
see
a
what
red
you mean.
defense die, so if you're rolling a block, that one's only worth 1 point. If you roll a surge, that one's worth 3 points. If you roll miss, then you get 2 points if you score that one.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I definitely think that that's
Yeah.
in the Shatterpoint like mindset for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not against it because again, I've had a lot of fun with Shatterpoint, but I think that there might be a lot of players who say like, no, because then my opponent got lucky and they rolled 3 surges and now I can't win because the rest of the game that like they got 9 points, like earlier or something. Like I definitely could see that there being weird little things.
Yeah.
Not to shoot your idea down in its
Oh yeah.
entirety though, because I really like the idea of maybe setting up something where it applies to both players, right? Like maybe it would be okay to have the center node
Mhm.
have that type of like escalating power because
Yeah.
it's equal for both players, right? So because it's the middle node,
Mhm.
everything else can be worth 1, but the middle one might be worth 3 and might be worth considering, something like that.
Mhm.
That's really
Yeah.
really cool.
The issue with doing a die roll in that situation is we don't have a die that has the same amount of each type of face on it.
Hmm. Sure. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So that comes into the issue
It's a
there
cool
for
idea.
sure.
I might actually homebrew something and try that out at a local because
Just make an objective die, whole new die.
yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
That's a
Baron of
great
Dice.
idea. That's a great idea actually.
Yeah.
There you
Make,
go. Just put it in like an errated objective pack. Have
yeah,
updated deployments, updated objectives, and then you have a deployment dice or like a node dice for that.
this could be
Send
a
it off in a pack. There you go.
that's great. This could be a whole separate conversation one day. Is you know how Disarray has special text and it's like the only like there's only like 2 like rollout and Disarray have special text where you get to do something special.
Mhm.
What if they all had something special? Like
Yeah.
I don't
So like rollout, vehicles can deploy within range 1 of the deployment zone.
yeah. Oh,
Disarray,
I forgot
you can't.
advanced that
Yeah.
that has special text too.
Advanced, trooper unit gains scout 1 and loses stationary. Rollout is the deployment one. Disarray, things have to stay in the one has to be in each single
Yep.
lower deployment one, and it can't scout out of it as long as there's one within it. Yeah, there would have to be a specific text for every single objective, which I wouldn't mind having like an updated pack, but then
Yeah.
kind of harping on that idea. Now you have an objective die, so now it's an equal die, equal amount of faces. Roll it, and then just keep going.
That'd
There
be
you
so
go.
cool.
There's one dice. There you go.
Even if
One dice.
it's
That's all you need.
even if it's not new objectives, but extra cards that allow for more victory points. Like I said, like even in supply drop, if you had pulled a card that said you gain secret mission, then oh man, now you really have to go over that after that unit because that unit's going to be coming at you. So it's not like bounty because at least if they were to just stay in the back and they have long range guns, you're not getting at them. But if they have breakthrough or sorry secret mission, they have to go into your deployment zone. So they've got to make the sacrifice of gaining a victory point to get into your deployment zone out of nowhere. So I think maybe if they introduce instead of new objectives, or maybe along with objectives or new objectives, adding on to maybe like I said, an extra evaporator that is in the middle at this point, or changing the I don't know, just adding a few things. I feel
Here we go.
would be better.
All right, we'll leave this hot take and maybe we can talk about it another time because it's gonna blow up. But like, what if both players get to play their objective deck and then you play 2 objectives, one from each player's list. So one person's bringing the conditions and the deployments, but both players get to bring their objectives, and during the bans you have 2 rows of objectives. So imagine a world where, okay, this person's playing sabotage, but guess what? We're playing sabotage bombing run. Let's go! Like, and it's going to be both.
That'd be a ton
Definitely
of different
need another
points.
veto.
Jesus Christ. I'm vetoing everything. I don't care. Imagine doing hostage exchange on bombing run. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I'm giving my
hostage-
hostage the bomb. Get cooked.
That's what I mean. Like I'm like, it's a big
Hostage
discussion.
breakthrough. That's a weird one.
Hostage breakthrough. I gotta got my guy over here, but I gotta rush over. I'm just saying, that's wacky and wild, and I think that would be
too much chaos.
like, because then you don't even need to change the current objectives. You just, all of a sudden it's just like, now your list has to be better at a lot of things, and it also solves partly the problem of secret mission and bounty, being a little powerful on certain things, because you're like, well, now we're doubling the amount of victory points right there, so.
Yeah, and it still offers ways for, even if you are slightly disadvantaged, or you get outbid, or you're outacted for like low cost units, it still leaves you in the game to be like, okay, you scored bounty, but now I'm gonna go, repair your, moisture vaps. Now what?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well now I got to come back to repair those. It's like, okay, well now I got to do this extra thing.
Yeah,
I think it takes a
and
while to like, implement, but that's a pretty good idea. They wouldn't have to do much.
I'm gonna try it this Thursday. I'll tell you guys how it goes.
All right.
Yes, please. I would be very interested to know how it goes.
Double objectives. It's happening.
But I will have to end it there. This is a great objective talk. I feel like we've gotten a lot talked about and discussed when it comes to objectives and kind of what we think and what we think would be better. But yeah, maybe next time we could talk about how that went, and maybe just whatever else. If people have video ideas, definitely shoot them to me so we can discuss it.
Yep.
But yeah, man, I appreciate all of you guys. We'll have to close it here, but do you guys have any finishing thoughts or any like closing statements or anything?
Play Wookiees.
Din is good. Din is good. Din is good. And Bam Din.
And Bandit.
Don't sleep on him.
Expensive sniper, but really good.
It breaks limited visibility, by the way.
It does.
Yeah, because it's not an attack.
roll.
Nope.
Fingers crossed TOing goes well on Saturday. We'll see.
Yeah, you'll have to let us
Hoping
know.
to get to the magical 16.
Yeah, you got to let us know how your tournament goes. All of the terrain you were painting and all the stuff that you did for it. You got to get some photos, put them in there, and we'll have to bring it up next week if we can get together again.
Yeah, and he just told me this. I don't know what it looks like, and he said that he's going to tease this too. So I guess I don't see why it'd be an issue if I said something about it. But apparently Nick Bodnar is going to be showing off or painting up a new table that he's going to be bringing for it to be used. So that'll be cool. We'll get tested out before PAX.
Nice. Yeah, you'll
Nice.
definitely have to show us that. That seems interesting. Pinning up a new table. I guess new like 3D printed terrain and stuff as well.
Yeah, like I have no idea what to expect. I wasn't expecting that to begin with. I just knew he's coming to play, but he's also gonna help me out a lot, and he's bringing a couple tables. So I'm very curious now to see what this looks like.
Yeah. Well, all right. We'll post that into the Discord whenever you get the chance this coming up weekend. Should be fun.
Yep.
And whenever we have ours on the 11th, we'll have to take some photos and get some interesting behind the scenes stuff there too. And again, congrats on 3-1 with your little tournament as well, Anthony. With Din, Boba, and the bikes. But yeah. If you guys already haven't, go ahead and head to that Discord, become part of the group, and even get to ask questions at some point. And then also head over to the Patreon and become a member there. And be sure to help the channel grow, and we'll get more stuff to you. But all right, guys, thanks for joining up, and thanks for watching, everybody. Y'all have a great rest of your day.
See ya.
Later.
Yeah.